Dear Master and dear Brother Jackson and all the bodhisattvas in the US. As it should be good evening to you all. And now, in the abode, we just finished our morning studies, finished our morning meal. But at this time in the US, it should be close to the evening. So just like a couple of days ago, we're doing the international training, Master has said that Tzu Chi is a world where the sun never sets. At this time in Taiwan, where it's in the morning, it's almost close to night in the US. And in different areas, it could be at different time. But Master has reminded us that take that your second and change and make it into a kalpa, which is a measurement of time. A kalpa can also be condensed in within 1 to 1 second. The difference is dependent on our heart. If our heart has no distance, then each one of us are so close together. Of course, during our thoughts and our perspective, as long as we share the same perspective, then we have the same target, the same goal. So Master had mentioned to us that because Tzu Chi is a practice, as there's many groups, many different types of cultivation, it's about learning the Dharma. But what Master wanted us to learn the Dharma, but also at the same time practice it. Master has said that learning Dharma is with our mind, but to do things with our mind and our hands. So in order to practice, to realize the Dharma within the human realm, we have to use our hearts, our brain, and our hands together. So how do we do in this time of suffering or be in a warm environment? How do we create and adjust? That is so that we have a positive energy, a power of love. And as long as this love is within the world, then it will be within our mind. It's within the mind. Within the mind, it represents the brain, it represents the hand, but more ultimately, it represents our heart, our sincere heart. So how do we keep and protect this heart, this mind within each second? That is our goal of cultivation. So cultivation, is it difficult? It is actually a practice we do within our daily lives. This year has been the 30-year anniversary for Tzu Chi in the environmental protection efforts. Master has mentioned many times the hands of our volunteers, our recycling volunteers. This hand is the hand of our recycling volunteers. While they're young, they care for their family, their society. After joining Tzu Chi, they dedicate themselves to the environmental protection and fearless of the odors or how unclean what they may pick up. So if everyone can reach out their hands, then we have hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of hands. And together we will purify the world to change the climate and reduce natural disasters. Recently, I have done something that's not within our responsibility, that I am editing a book, because this year we aim to lead sutra interpretations across the world. And in order to lead the interpretation, Sister Tzu Yu has called upon the volunteers and to practice the 7 interpretations. Now, in order to have that, we must have the book. But since we don't have a book available, then we have to create it.
So we are still waiting for the book, but seeing Master Ching's disappointment that the book has not been able to be published, we realize her sadness and her anxiety and her worries. And in many countries, a lot of volunteers have attended the climate change conference, and the consensus is that we should focus on reducing carbon emission so that we can slow down the global warming. But how exactly will we do this? No country has actually suggested any realistic steps. But because of economic benefit, no country has actually committed to sacrifice their economic profit and prioritize the wellness of the world. But when we look back at the past 30 years, Master Cheng Yen has led Tzu Chi volunteers. These seemingly insignificant and very normal recycling volunteers use their hands to take actual action to purify the environment and recycle. So masters have said to solve the environmental problem is not by talking about it, it's through actions and taking real steps. So what do we do in this practical action? This is not just a teaching that Master speaks to the volunteers. She actually does it herself. Master always tells us we must act ourselves before we can preach and teach others to do anything. In the very early days, Master Cheng Yen has always demanded herself to be very strict. She's always a role model in all the actions that she preached. We can see her daily life to understand how she lived a very environmental friendly life. We only know to cherish our blessings, to live frugally. Actually, living frugally is environmental protection. So how does Master Cheng Yen practice this? One piece of paper, she can use it by writing it on pencils and then use a blue pen, a red pen, and then finally using the Chinese calligraphy brush. So it's really incredible that one piece of paper can be used for 4 times. But a lot of us think there are so many resources of paper. Why should we take this trouble? And sometimes in the abode, using water, we were helping to clean Master Cheng Yen's room, and we realized that how Master Cheng Yen cherishes water. Early morning, the water she used to wash her face is always saved after she uses it. She never throws the water out. She uses it to flush the toilet. In her details in daily life, she cherishes every resource because of gratitude. She's grateful for all the resources that heaven and earth has given us. So we have to be mindful in cherishing every resource, even a drop of water, a piece of paper. So Master really practices this in her daily life to lead us as a role model. So we hope all of you can also become role models by starting in details in your own daily life. Even just one drop of water, we should not underestimate this one drop of water. So this is how Master Cheng Yen leads by a role model. And of course, if we can be so mindful and loving and cherishing every material resource, how can we not apply the same love towards people, towards other sentient beings? So we should also cherish and practice gratitude towards everyone in our life. From one to infinity, we can extend the same mindset to everything in our life in the world. This is spiritual practice. This is spiritual cultivation. When we talk about saving water in the abode in the early days, we used to go to the back mountains behind the abode, and there was a little pond of water coming from the mountain springs. And we would use to take the blankets, the sheets, large canvas sheets, and we'll bring it to the pond to wash and launder. We use natural water resource. But later, as climate has changed and shifted, the water in this pond has become so low and so dry that we can no longer use it. But we still collect rainwater in the abode. Many of the architecture design is also collected from rainwater. We have designed the building to collect more and more rainwater. For example, in our dining hall, in front of the courtyard, we can see this rainwater collected well system. So this is a pump that can pump water collected from the rain. It has been there for a while since 2007. But the climate has shifted that we don't have that much water from the rain. And Master have come to try this pump personally. So using this rainwater, apart from watering the plants and our crops and using it to clean and wash the factory, we also use it to many ways. And we also collect water from the mountains. And it's so pure from the drains that connect to the mountains. Sometimes when we work in the farms, our tools, our rain boots need to be washed. So we would just use the water running down the drain from the mountains. So people in Taiwan often say running water is so convenient. But in the abode, we use very little running water. We do our best to make use of natural rainwater, mountain water in our daily life. So to protect the environment, in the abode, we often come into plastic bags because it's so common. It's so common in everything that we buy. It's really overwhelming. So since the item has been produced, we have to properly recycle and reuse them. So for example, in the kitchen, when we have items that needs to be packaged, we would reuse these clean or greasy plastic bags. Someone will mindfully wash and clean these plastic bags and dry them so that some of them can be recycled or reused. And when it comes to really, really large plastic bags, our boat masters have been ingenious in using the larger plastic bags and cutting and making them into aprons, because many jobs in the boat comes into a lot of water and we need these aprons. So this is a creative way of reusing the plastic bags because we ran out of apron. And sometimes rewashing the old aprons take more water. So the boat masters use these aprons and made them from the recycled plastic bags. So we can use it in the many jobs around the boat, such as dishwashing and cleaning. So in our daily life, how can we practice saving water? So example, we have a workflow in our dishwashing that we use a pipe to connect the clean water to the next station so that the station doesn't have to use as much water. So we do our best to save water.
So we connected a pipe between the different stations. The pipe will drain the cleanest water to our next station, so we don't have to use an extra water. And one day, when one of the boat masters recorded this video, and we just realized that how rhythmic everyone is doing. So let me just show you everyone.
因为这种圆盘子啊，它就是容易破，所以在洗除了要快又要小心。
Now, these round plates are one of the hardest to clean because they're very fragile. So as you clean them, you have to be very quick, but also be very careful.
就是师傅们比较会分享到的，就是我们怎么样在洗菜的时候省水。那既然今天呢是全美菩萨大家一起在线上共修，或许有一些人也不太清楚。那我们现在呢
So besides washing the plates, a lot of you may have heard that the master will share how we wash the vegetables and how do we save water while doing so. And today, even while we are having the US volunteers getting together, let's take a moment to review that. And this is how we've been saving water in the abode ever since. Even now, we still continue in this method. we even think about ways, how do we maybe even be more conserving? Because a lot of the vegetables were grown in the abode from the farms. So if there's after rain, there's a lot of sand, a lot of grits that gets stuck on these vegetables. So they have to be cleaned 5 times. After these 5 times, can you imagine how much water that would be necessary? And we have ways of saving it. So let me just show you.
好像说你们听不太到声音哈。这是第一关哦，是最脏的。
So this is the first station where the vegetables is still the most dirty. So it goes through one station after the next station, and then we will use the filter to take out the particles so that the water can be a bit cleaner. And then we'll reuse that same water to keep washing the vegetables. When the earlier stations, the water has become too dirty, we'll move out the station so that the cleaner water can continue be used. And then we'll save the water for other purposes, for such as washing the floor.
那我们就先看到这里。所以呢，刚才大家也有看到哦，我们在洗菜是不是有一些橘桶？
And you can also see in the process when we're using these round pails to wash the vegetables, all of them have actually been repaired because everything goes through decay and they will break down over time. So it's a pity to throw away these broken pails. So the boat masters have learned a way to use these bronze wires to sew back these broken pails. And we can use these pails to keep the compost, the scraps of the vegetables that we peel and clean and chop up. So we can extend the material life of all these objects, and we don't have to buy new pails. A few days ago, we saw some of the boat masters. Master De Chuan has been very creative in reusing this little drying rack. She went to the recycling station and took this cover of a fan, a standing fan. She used the cover of this fan and transformed it into this drying rack so that we can use it to dry our tools, gloves, and we can save resources and save money and also upcycle and give a new life to these objects. So it's really amazing and praiseworthy. So this is Master De Chuan. I will tell you a secret about her story. Recently, she has been injured in her hands. So one of her hands has to be in a sling, and I saw how she's been doing laundry single-handedly with one hand in a sling. She said she has a way to do it. So she actually made a pipe herself, a pipe made of plastic and metal wire, and then taped onto herself. Too bad I didn't take a picture. But she made this contraption so that she can adjust her own angle, and she can use one hand to do her own laundry with these upcycled items. So if we're mindful in our daily life, we can find creative ways to expand our potential. So when we talk about cherishing resources, it's not something that we just started recently. Even in the very early days of Tzu Chi, in the 60s, when we were making baby shoes and cement bags, all the Tzu Chi volunteers, and the boat masters have found ways to make these baby shoes from scraps, from cloth scraps that are collected from different businesses. So the early days about monastics, my senior monastic brothers, they have used these creative ways to upcycle these scraps. What happened to these elderly monastics that are too old to do this factory work? When this senior master was older, when we're still feeling healthy, she would go to the soap factory and help. In recent years, her health has declined, so she can't really walk very well. So, in a little space near her dorm room, she's still working very hard to support the abode lifestyle. So you can see Master De Yang. She's peeling this Inca fruit, which is a new crop that we have planted, which is very nutritious, especially for plant-based diet people. It's a really good nutrient source. So we have grown this fruit, Inca fruit, but the seed and the fruit is really hard to be extracted from the shell. So it takes people that are really patient to put in the labor to mindfully peel this fruit, because this work has to be done, no matter how big or small the task is. So she willingly dedicated herself. And because the space is not very bright, she lit a very tiny desk lamp for her own workspace to save energy. So we can see how actual practice and action can really cherish these resources. This is our most senior brother, Master, one of the earliest disciple following Master Cheng Yen. She's still working very hard. And we've often hear her share stories from the really early days of Tzu Chi, when Tzu Chi has no money. And now she's in her 80s. Master De Tzu, she's still working very busy, never letting herself slack, because there's a lot of financial burden on the abode monastics to support themselves. So she wants to dedicate herself whenever she has physical strength. So every day she still goes to the pottery workspace and working. And she also led us to another campus to collect this fruit, to pick this fruit, which is a new fruit that was recommended for us to grow, to cultivate in the farm. It's good for the land, for nature, and for health. So the abode monastics will buy the seeds and try planting them. So we also have this research project in Tzu Chi University of Technology to try growing this plant and find different ways to use the fruit. So having so many fruits on this tree, what should we do? We have to harvest them and see if the abode community can use this fruit to produce a new creative sustainable products. So we often have this work trade with the mission staff. So we arranged a project for people to come together to harvest the fruits from this tree. And our oldest monastic also joined us. She's in her 80s and she's so old, but she still enthusiastically signed up to help. Actually, myself personally, I had some issue with my legs. So I also had to go through some procedure and medical treatment. So I've tried to reduce my work outdoors. But hearing how our senior monastic is still signing up to go, I realized that I cannot fall back. I cannot fall behind, so I have to follow them. So I also signed up and went. And I saw all the above monastics so dedicatedly working, and I'm really moved. So we collect this fruit, and a lot of the fruits actually grow really high on the tree. And the low-hanging fruits were easier to harvest, but the taller ones we have to climb up the tree to lower the branches so that we can reach the fruit. And the rest of us will pick up the fruit that actually fell onto the ground. So this is our teamwork, and this is the fruit that we've collected. And what can we do with the fruit? We decide to make dried fruit powder out of this fruit. We've heard that there's a lot of micro minerals and nutrients in this fruit to support good health. So this is in our daily life. This is the spiritual cultivation life. We are following Mother Nature, spending time in nature, because we know Mother Nature is our home. So we have to take care of all living beings in nature. And the abode, Master often shared this story about the moon not coming home. So this is actually a rose. It's called angelic rose, the moon rose. And we realize that this rose, when it blossoms, when it blooms in a large volume. So maybe it'll be a good product for us to cultivate. Maybe it's the land of the abode or the love and care of all our staff, that the flowers have been blossoming and blooming really well. So the abode masters have been growing more and more of these flowers. So why did we call it the moon rose? Because the first time we cultivated them, by the time we finished planting, it was already evening, close to nighttime. And everyone thought, oh, this is a nighttime rose. So we called it the moon rose. And when we lifted our heads and we saw, oh, the moon didn't show up, so the moon didn't come home, which in Chinese sounds like a rose. So the moon rose is a time when we planted the flowers at night and there was no moon in the sky. And you can see all the monastic abodes look like they're having so much fun. It doesn't look like they're working very hard. They're still taking pictures. So this is us coming to the farm to take a class. Because in the abode, everyone has their own assignment. Not everyone understands the other departments and the other tasks. Some people work in the kitchen, some people work in the farm, and some people work in the missions, in the media department, in the factory. So everyone works busily in their own line of expertise, so they don't really understand the farm work, especially when it comes to the crops that are all grown in the abode. So last year, we prepared one class, a class lecture series where people can go station by station to understand the other monastics, what projects they're working on, what kind of work the other monastics are taking on. So this time, we went to the soap factory and a planted area near the factory, which is where the roses were blooming. So everyone was really excited to help harvest the rose. So now every morning and every evening we have to work to harvest this flower because they bloom so much. How did this happen? It actually hasn't been blooming so well in the past. There was a period that it didn't want to bloom. So one of our Master De-an, she went to the farm and started teaching the Dharma to the roses. She started speaking to the roses. Oh, roses, please work hard. Please bloom. Then in the future, you can help make offerings and serve all living beings in the world. So the flowers are very magical and very sentient. They have been blooming so diligently, blooming in the morning, blooming in the evening. So we have so many flower petals to harvest. So the abode community also feel that they can't let these flowers wilt. So we have to work very hard to harvest them whenever we can. And the abode masters have many realizations. And hearing how Master An has spoken to the flowers and the flowers responded, this has barely been a lesson for us that we cannot give up on any opportunity to transform other sentient beings. Even flowers and plants have feelings. They can respond, let alone humans. So humans have more sentience and intelligence. So how can we give up on any person that we meet in transforming them and giving them the Dharma? It's just that we are limited by our own limiting belief that many things are impossible and difficult. So we're limited by our own ideas, our own mindset. So we got to reflect that many things in life, if we don't try, we have no opportunity. So we have to give ourselves and the other person a chance. When we were picking the flowers, this tiny flower, we have to be very mindful and careful because there are many thorns on these flowers, or we will be injured by the thorns. So, this is also another lesson that as we are going among people, we have to realize that there are obstacles like the thorns of the flowers. And when we encounter these conflicts between people, it can be painful. So we need the Dharma, the teachings of the Buddha. With the Buddha's teachings, we can use it to protect our heart, to treat our heart. So we know how to treat people, how to open our mind, expand our mind, so we can use the Dharma to transform each other. So living bodhisattvas are like farmers. We're not just working on the land, and the land might not be as smooth, as fertile, like the abode land. Many plots of the land is actually covered with pebbles and stones. To really cultivate on this land, we have to clear all the pebbles and the stones before we can plant anything. Just like the weather changes every day, nothing always goes our way. Sometimes when we plant something, the rainwater might wash away everything. So we have to be very patient and start over again. So in this process of farming, we have encountered many obstacles such as weeds that actually grow better than our plants. So how can we stay steadfast in our steps and do what we need to do? Weed when we need to weed, give fertilizer when we need to give fertilizer, the compost. When we need to water the plants, we have to water the plants. So at every moment, there are things we need to do. So we have to care for the land with mindfulness, just like how we care for our heart. So in the early days, Master spoke to the early abode masters. There were 30-ish abode masters that joined Tzu, and now we only have about 200 monastics living in the abode. But in the early days, Master has been clearly telling all her disciples that everyone must be clear about their position. We're not a spiritual training ground about meditation. We have to go among people and practice the bodhisattva path. This is our school. She reminded her disciples that how she has practiced this herself, from starting at the little wooden hut until today. Master remained firm in her initial aspiration. No matter how time and space and circumstances change, she safeguarded her aspiration, never being stumbled or challenged by her environment. She hopes all her disciples can do the same. Master said her heart is all on all living beings in the world, but she's very clear on her duties and where she needs to be and what she needs to do. Although her heart can be wide and reach all living beings, she can bring her heart back and focus into her spiritual practice. So Master Cheng Yen hopes that all of her disciples can be the same and follow her in joining the Tzu school of Buddhism, take on the Buddha's mission, and pass on the Jing Dharma lineage, and be firm in the will to practice, and be consistent, be sincere, and wholehearted. This is Master sharing in the 2000s, early 2006. It's the same message. Master has always been consistent. As a Jingsi disciple, my work is in the Jingsi humanistic culture. So what is my role? How can I pass on the Dharma? How can I spread it out? So for example, now it's the 7th lunar month. The 7th lunar month in Asia, in East Asia, it's a month of superstition, the ghost month. And in typical traditions such as in Taiwan, there are festivals to make offerings to the ghost. But Master Cheng Yen has been promoting this new idea that this month is a month of celebration, a month of loving our parents. And Master is trying to transform the old superstitions of making offerings with killing animals and burning paper. Instead, we can offer our sincerity to make offerings with flowers and fruits and come back to the Dharma. So gradually, many temples in Taiwan have transformed their habits and their culture in celebrating this month, especially with the pandemic. Everyone's heart is so anxious. So many big festivals have been canceled. For example, in the USA, the pandemic is still very severe. So we've heard stories that in Southern California there are many wildfires. So at these times, how can we pray for world peace and more safety for the world? What can we do? So we have sisters who gathered these young people to plan this music cultural festival and prayer ceremony, an interfaith Jing music and praying festival, so that we can share Master's teachings and the Dharma and the principles that Master Cheng Yen wants to spread to everyone. So we need these skillful means. So in August in Taiwan, we've practiced and prepared this music festival.
So this year in the August, which is our previous month, that we have created these 5 musical prayers. And the last one in Tainan had the most number of people, nearly 3,000 attendees. And in many different areas, they all have their affinities and create a lot of joys for the people locally. And here, I just would like to share with you all at this time, we're using the Jing aphorism. Last year has been the 30th anniversary of Jing aphorism, but Jing aphorism is actually, there's no time limit on that. At any time, Master will be sharing her wisdom with us through these little short snippets. Even a short word or short sentence, we can affect other people's heart. So how do we let people know that there are many different ways that you can use this? We try to incorporate that into our musicals. So these young volunteers, they create a very local ideas. Like in Tainan, we had the Tainan Tzu Elementary School kids. In Nantou, we had students from the Hope projects following the September 21st earthquake. They helped interpret through their musical performance the ideas of Jesus aphorism. And they integrated local resources through music, through musical performances, to songs, and gather the love and goodness so that the guests that are attending it can feel and be motivated. These events really touched a lot of the guests, and a lot of these people were full of feelings after attending the event. So we show that Jing aphorism is suitable for all age groups. I'm very grateful for technology, and now that we have the opportunity to through Facebook platforms, that we can show it live through different parts of the world, so that people who couldn't make it to the place were able to join as well. This is where the volunteers were performing. And at the same time, we also invited many senior volunteers to bear witness and share their experiences. Because right now there's many foreign spouses that are in Taiwan. So through their interaction with Tzu Chi, they shared how they're transformed, their thoughts transformed their lives. All these stories were shared during this event. And we also had a musical prayers in these festivals. Not only do we invite singers, we also invited local performing troops. And this was actually the most unique experience for everyone that attended. Through a very humorous acts, they conveyed the idea of vegetarianism, of how everyone could to care for the living beings and repent. Through the music, through the theatrical performances, the guests absorb the ideas easily. At the same time, I have to share with you that in our daily lives, we must practice our environmental protection efforts. Many people they would eat out and they would use disposable utensils or plastic bags. And now with Jing promoting these products, we have Brother Jing Yi kind of share with us how these products came to being, how they were created and designed, how it was created with the thought of reducing waste, and at the same time show everyone what we have been doing. Not only are we recycling the unused portions of these raw materials, we also created and we produced them into our toilet paper. How we incorporate modern technology to conserve our natural resources and the ideas that we share with everyone. At the end, everyone had a gift, which is a Jingsi aphorism books, and we invited everyone to read them, to understand them and practice them. And everyone felt really joyful after that. So just like Matt just said, the true beauty, where is it? The true beauty is in our sincerity and our diligence and creating the goodness in our society. So with everyone working together, that's the true beauty in the world. So Master has shared that the core of Buddhism is the practice of bodhisattva. It's a bodhisattva practice. And just like we shared earlier or recently, right now we are reviewing what Master has taught us earlier, how Master shared the 7 interpretations in the Lotus Sutra and how we are compiling them into our book. We can see that so many years ago, when Master started expounding the Lotus Sutra, the transformations in the lives of the people. From then to now, we can see how consistent Master has been when she's interpreting the Dharma. So through the compilation efforts, we review that we see that how many people that in order to relieve themselves of the life and death struggles, they isolated themselves. So, and they were afraid of walking out and making contact with people. But Master Zhenyan has taught us that if we just take care of ourselves, we're not able to achieve what we're doing. Instead, we must practice the great vehicles of going out and benefiting the society. So just recently, as Master has shared that through the environmental volunteers, what they have done for the societies, the ideas and the practice that they share with their lives. And we can see from their seemingly usual common lives, even though they may not be named, they were able to create something completely different. These people, they could have lived a well life at their homes, but they did choose to go out and do things for the society. Through the live connections with Master, the volunteers had shared that, like one of the volunteers, their kids were doctors. They could have lived a worry-free life, but she decided to stay in their their old home, even though their kids have asked her to live with them. She refused. Master has said that it is okay to visit them, to see them, because even if you go visit them, there's still recycling stations there. So in Tzu Chi, we can see that everyone kept a pure heart, a pure thought, regardless of what background they have. And we hope that at this time, and especially like around our family members in the US, it's been a very difficult time. Not only are we caring for people through the virus pandemics, we have to face many natural disasters, the wildfire that's continuously spreading. Everything required everyone's effort and your help. So we hope that as you're helping other people, you also take care of yourself. Remember to keep, maintain your good health, keep your face mask on. Like Master has shared earlier a couple of days ago, and one sentence she shared had made me realize a lot. Master said that now that that she has gotten older, she's not as fast as she was before. And but even then, she hasn't slowed down her first step in following everybody, because every step she took, she's taken a big stride. And that's something she's been practicing when she was young. It's what she's used to. So after hearing Master share that, I realized that even now I have to take very good strides and walk faster. And I feel really energized upon doing that. Just like Master Zheng has expected us, that each one of us to become someone that that other people cannot miss, cannot live without. And that is not something that is something that you have to do to realize. You can't just talk about it. And that by doing that, let other people feel your importance. And this importance is in the heart of other people. It's not just in our mouth, not just how we say it. So in order to do that, how to eliminate our worries, how we have to spread the seeds of love, seeds of goodness, to affect other people and really transform them. So this is my short sharing with everyone.